Hey, Nakita, what's up?
Hey, how are you, Andrew?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm
Good.
I'm feeling really good today, which is or well, right now.
Well, that's
which
good.
yeah, how are you? How are you?
I'm doing good. Just trying to adjust to our new normal for right now.
Right, right, right. And that's what I mean. Like I feel good right now, I mean it's like throughout the day there are these times when you just get really low and then you feel good and
Mhm.
so I think I'm adjusting and I'm kinda like, okay, I can I think I'm adjusting. I hope, but I'm feeling good now. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just finding like other things like, oh, now I have the time to do this so
Yeah.
trying to find the
Yeah. For
best
real.
use of this time. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so very much for allowing me to do this interview. As I kind of briefly told you, this is like my going into week two of a business class I'm taking through an organization called Corner to Corner,
Okay.
and so it's just like an entrepreneur thing to help for people who want to kind of start up a business. And so
Okay.
I want to start working on more of my kind of life coaching, and also I want to
Mhm.
write books to go along with that.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
the first step I want to do is to do a book and use the book as a springboard to other services and things that I want to do. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so that's why I wanted to interview you since you're an author and editor. So
Okay, very cool. Well, thanks. It was, you know, particularly now, it's nice to receive requests like this.
yeah,
It's like, all
good.
right, cool. Give me something to do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, what do you need to know? How can I help?
All right. So approximately kind of how long have you been an author?
Well, I've been an author. Sort of the difference between a writer and an author is, published. So I published
Mhm.
my first piece when I was uh gosh, what was I? I think I was 15 or 16.
Oh
So
wow.
what am I? I'm turning 39 soon, which is the last year of my 30s, which is wild. So it's been a little while, 23 years. I mean, I've been writing since I was like, able to write. Um,
Mhm.
so really started writing right off the bat and published, fairly young. Yeah, just a poem. Didn't publish a book or
Mhm.
anything. I didn't publish my first book came out in 2014, so that was a much
Okay.
longer journey. So it's been 6 years of being a published book person with a book.
Okay. All right. Kind of tell me about how you got started. Writing and
hmm
wanting to actually eventually do a book.
Well, I grew up in this family of my dad is this brilliant storyteller. I have a YouTube channel or yeah, channel called Where I Was. It's also on Facebook, and it's him telling stories. Um,
Hmm.
this video of him telling stories, and you should go check it out. I mean, he's just
Yeah.
an amazing. If you go to my website and click on media, it's a little easier to find
Okay.
from there. So he's just an amazing storyteller. He just loves to tell stories. Like makes him happy. So he
Mhm.
does it all the time. And then we just had lots of books growing up. In fact, I'm sitting in my living room of my parents' house right now because
Mhm.
we're sort of doing this sort of light self quarantine thing. So I basically stay at my house and then at my parents' house, with the kids.
Mhm.
And I mean, I can't even tell you how many books I'm looking at right now. It's like hundreds. They're just everywhere. And so, you know, I just I also think it's probably in my DNA somewhere, to be a
Mhm.
writer. There's something in there. I've tried other art forms. But writing is the only one that stuck. And for some oddball reason, poetry really stuck. Why that
Okay.
is, who knows? You know, Sometimes I regret it. I'm like, oh my God, why am I a poet? This is the worst because it's very hard to be a poet. But it's hard to be anything. It's nothing new. But yeah, I don't know. I think I had a lot of writing and storytelling around me, and poetry. Just it's a you can do a lot in a small space. You're not expected to do as much as a novel or even a short story, even though you can. Um, but it's sort of you can the poem is very flexible. You can do just about anything if you do it well in a poem, and that's not necessarily true in other written forms.
Mhm. All right. So did you edit your book yourself?
Yes. Um, Now, it was also edited by a lot of other people. you know,
Okay.
I've got two books out now. The first
Mhm.
one is Ghost Gear, and it came out in 2014. And I wrote that in graduate school,
Mhm.
and it was my graduate thesis. And like I had to like go before a committee,
Yeah.
and I had a thesis director, Judy Jordan, who's an amazing poet and an amazing teacher, taught me everything. I've had a lot of amazing teachers, but she's like she's one of the primary ones. And so yes, I edited it and revised it tirelessly, like a lot. You don't even want to know. But it was also edited by lots of other people. The
Okay.
second book maybe a little less because I wasn't in graduate. I mean, I wrote parts of it in graduate school,
Mhm.
but and Judy Jordan also edited it, but like it didn't go through a committee. It wasn't part of
Mhm.
my education, so and thus it took a lot longer to write. My first book I wrote in like three, I guess maybe 5 years is probably more fair. My second book, it took me 13 years from the first poem being written to it being published. It took a long time. I also wasn't in graduate school, so like I was working, so
Mhm.
there were time limitations that didn't exist when I was in graduate school. Um, but I just didn't have the guidance. I mean, I had written some of it in graduate school, but then wrote the rest outside of graduate school. And it was also just a different animal, just a harder book to write, honestly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, the answer to the question is yes. Both books were edited by me, but also edited by other people, for sure.
Okay. Did you have a hard time finding a publisher, or kind of how did you go about finding a publisher?
Yeah, it is it's very hard, as a freelance editor who edits other people's books, and as a
Mhm.
ghostwriter who writes other people's books, as a publisher myself, and as a writer. I mean, it publishing a book is really one of the hardest things. It's like getting elected to political office, in all honesty. I mean, that's probably not a fair analogy, but I don't know. It might be pretty close. I mean, it's really hard. It is really hard. My first book, I submitted for years. I think it got over 100 rejections.
Mhm.
And then it got picked up, and it was like, oh my god, and it's been well reviewed, and I'm sure there are people who don't like it, but like they don't. Luckily, nobody has come to me and said, God, I just hate your book, which would be fine. but,
Mhm.
but I mean, like it's gotten well reviewed. I mean, people really like it, and it's like,
Mhm.
golly, it took all this effort, and then with the second book, when I first started submitting it, it almost got picked up a whole bunch of times,
Mhm.
and then it just sort of fell off. It sort of fell off a cliff. Like for the first year and a half that I submitted it for 3 years. The first like year and a half, it was a finalist for all these post-publication prizes, which I'll explain in a second.
Mhm.
And then, but it didn't get selected for publication. And then it sort of just kind of went into it. Just after that, it wasn't a finalist for anything, and then it got picked up, sort of out of the blue. So, um, it takes a lot of effort. I think I submitted it probably to probably about 75 times. That's a good guess. Maybe 60, 60 to 75 times. So it got rejected a lot. But a post publication or a publication prize in the poetry world, it's a little different. But there's a lot of different ways to publish. But in the poetry world, a lot of the time we submit to prizes, publication
Oh,
prizes. So
okay.
if you win the prize, they publish your book. But those prizes receive like 1,000 submissions. So if you win, you're like one of
Mhm.
1,000. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
Like, so there's lots of books that don't get picked up that are really good. It's just
Mhm.
there's only one. sometimes they publish like 3 or 4 or 5 or something. But the percentages, you have like a less than 1% chance, and that's not like way less than a 1% chance in many cases. So it's a really tough road to hoe. For other people, you in other genres, it's a little bit better, I guess you could say. You pitch to agents, so it's not just a press, a publication, a publishing house receives 1,000 books and picks one.
Mhm.
They talk to agents who have received a pitch, which the person says, "Hey, I've got this book, and here's why I think it would sell." And you get to make an argument for your book rather than just, "Here's the book,
Mhm.
read it, and I hope you like it." But even then, I mean, you know, agents receive hundreds of pitches a day, so it's really not that different,
Yeah.
So it's a tough road to hoe. This is why a lot of people self-publish, because you can skip all that, but then you don't have any of the mechanisms behind it to get it out in front of people, and uh, so it has its positives and negatives, and um, yeah, it's very hard to publish a book.
Okay. Good to know. Now, what were some of your roles or other responsibilities in putting these works together? Um, well, I know obviously writing them and editing them. Was there
Hmm.
any other roles that went into place to get this work completed?
That's a good question. I kind of want to take a step back about the last question now. What I wanted to
Mhm.
add to it is that it's really hard, but if you keep at it and you
Mhm.
keep being honest with yourself, I think most people agree that you eventually reach the finish line. So if you continue to make the book better, like every time it gets rejected, you should look at it. I mean, maybe not
Okay.
every time, but every month you should look at it and see if there's a way you
Mhm.
can make it better. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like let that rejection guide you in a positive way. It sounds like something Jeff would say. Like let it
Mhm.
guide you in a positive way. Don't let it shut you down, but don't ignore it either
Mhm.
until you reach that point. I mean, I reached a point with both of my books where I was like, okay, it's still getting rejected, but I know it's done. And I would like make micro adjustments, like tiny little stuff that nobody would even notice, but it mattered
Mhm.
to me. But prior to that, if I got a rejection and I looked at the book and my heart and my body was like, you could move this poem to another part, or you could change this stanza, or whatever, I would do it.
Mhm.
You know, and I think that ultimately, made use of the rejection, because otherwise you just feel crappy. But if you feel like you're using it, that feels good, and then it made the book better. So I will say that I think that
Okay.
the books, if they've been accepted earlier, were not as good as when they were accepted now. And honestly, if Visiting Hours hadn't been accepted and I had to wait another 2 years, it'd probably be better. Not a whole lot better, because I do think it was done by the time it got picked up, but it would be a
Mhm.
little bit better. So anyway, there's
Okay.
it's hard to publish, but if you keep at it and you're honest with yourself and you just stay positive and keep working, eventually you
Mhm.
will get there. That's what I think
Okay.
most any writer will agree with. Okay, so other things that I did to I mean, um I in both cases I was allowed to design my covers. Now,
Okay.
that I'm not a cover designer, but I was able to come up with the concept. So
Mhm.
for my first book, I was able to talk to a friend of mine who was an artist, and I said, "Here's kind of my general idea," and she made this amazing image that I was just like, "Oh my God, yes, that's exactly what I want," even though I didn't know I wanted it.
Mhm.
With the second book, I mean, they did exactly what I wanted. I came up with this
Okay.
idea of a black cover with just visiting hours and a moon for the O and the hours. And I was in love. I was like, oh my God, I love this cover. And they were like, wow, we really like it too. Well, we're going with it. And now then they get a designer to actually make it, technically proficient. You
Mhm.
want to do that. You don't want to, like, if you decide to do your own go your own publishing route, like it's always wise to hire somebody who knows what's actually doing when it comes to design. A lot of people, they'll self-publish a book and it just will look like they self-published it, and you really don't want that. So,
Mhm.
um, and then also, like, I published the poems individually before, like in magazines and stuff, before they were in the book itself.
Mhm.
That might not apply to every writer, but most writers, you can do things to get your work out in the world before it's in book form. Like maybe you have a blog, maybe you publish in magazines, maybe
Mhm.
you do social media and you get your ideas out. Maybe you have a YouTube channel. There's lots of things like that. And I do all that kind of stuff, really. Like if you go to my website, you'll see, I got a YouTube channel for this and that and the other. If I give a reading, I record it. So I don't know if that's exactly what you were asking, but there are lots of things
Yes.
you can do to get your work out there in the world that's not book form, that makes an argument to an agent or to a press that says, hey, this book is, it's legitimate. It's not just some random person. Even if you're not if you don't have a PhD, I mean, I don't have a PhD in creative writing or in, whatever, you know, you can create your own credential by just putting your work out there and proving to people that you have something to say and you do it well.
Okay. That's good to know. That's great advice. All right.
Mhm. Thank you.
What has been the best thing about being a writer and author and kind of doing it on your own?
Man, that's a big question. Um, there's so many answers to that question. Right now, um, it's a really weird time. I've got this book that came out 4 days ago,
Mhm.
and I had to cancel my big book release at this you know international writers conference where there's
Mhm.
20,000 people come and you release your book and you do all these parties. Yeah, I had to cancel that because I just didn't feel comfortable
Yeah.
going. This is really before the pandemic was even a pandemic, but I just saw it coming and I was just like,
Mhm.
man, I just don't feel comfortable going, and
Mhm.
I think like a good half, if not more, of the conference didn't go, and then other people went. I think it's great they went, but I just didn't feel good about it. I was like, no, I need to stay home, need to protect my family and my community,
Mhm.
um, and now, I was supposed to have a book release at Parnassus on April 3rd, and I've had
Yeah.
to cancel that, and so it's this really weird time to try to put out a book, but I feel so good. Like it's almost a little. I was talking to Karen, my girlfriend, about this just like an hour ago. How good I feel about not doing anything and like finding other ways to get the work out.
Yeah.
Um, it feels really good to be like. It's an odd way to give to your community to like sort of put your own successes and your own needs off. And I think that like as a writer, you have a unique opportunity to give to your community, and I've had lots of different ways that I've been able to do that. Like, um, I am a civil rights activist, and I've written about that.
Mhm.
I'm a political. I'm not a political junkie, I guess. I mean, not so much these days because I'm sort of tired of it. But you have to kind of take breaks. But like at one point, I went to a Trump rally and pretended I was a Trump supporter because I was just really curious to know how people would treat me and what I would see, and I wrote about
Mhm.
that. And it was not what I expected. Like it was not what I expected. It was a bizarre experience. And I wrote about that and like posted about that on Facebook
Mhm.
and so like I think what I really like about being a writer and maybe even particularly about being a poet, but I think other people would sort of scowl at me for saying that poets have this unique ability to do this. So I'll take that back immediately. But like I love that it makes you like go out in the world and do things. So we're in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic. People are
Mhm.
at home, they're stuck. And today I was like, you know what? I'm going to just read my book to everybody on Facebook and just put
I
it out
know I
there.
saw that. That was awesome.
Well, thank you. And I felt so good. I like when I was done with that, I have felt good all day ever since I did
Yeah.
that. And it just was like, you know, I'm excited that I can, maybe that will just like give people something to distract them for a little while and to think
Mhm.
about and and so yeah, I'm stoked to do that. So yeah, just the opportunity to give back to your community is by far the best part. By far the best part.
All right. And then I know you said one of the hardest things was about getting it published. Is there anything else that you consider the hardest part of your career?
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, these are good questions. They're like big questions with big answers. So it's hard to like decide what to what to settle on. I mean, there's a lot of disappointment. And I mean that's sort of already wrapped into the previous answer, which is hard to get
Mhm.
published, but even when you publish there's disappointment. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
like even when you publish a book, it's like any big accomplishment in your life. I don't know if you've experienced this, but you work for something for so long and then you get it and then you're like oddly depressed afterwards. It's like you should be overjoyed and you are, but you also realize like, oh my gosh, this big thing I've been working toward is done. What do I do
Yeah.
now? So yeah, so like even when you succeed, there's like this odd sort of like what do I do next thing. And so I think being a writer, and I think it's true in a lot of different areas, but I think being a writer, like you're constantly dealing with what's next, and it's important, you just, and like I'm so glad. I mean, there's so many different reasons. I'm so glad I found the community that you and I are part of, the Infinity
Mhm.
Fellowship. One of them is it reminds me every week to be happy for like literally what's happening right now. Like
Yes.
don't
Mhm.
always be casting forward. Don't always be looking in the past. Like literally, how are things in this minute, in this moment, in
Mhm.
this hour, in this day?
Mhm.
But but as a writer, there's a lot to think about. There's a lot going on. There are a lot of moving parts, and it's hard to stay focused. It's hard to enjoy. It's hard to enjoy it. It just is. And some writers are better at this than I am, but I think most writers would be nodding their heads like, yeah, it's just a hard thing to enjoy. There's just a lot. There's a lot of struggle tied up in it. And so like I could go into the individual things, but just generally speaking,
Mhm.
just and I guess I'm gonna zoom out to just being an artist. I mean, this is nothing
Mhm.
new. It's just hard, you know. Um, maybe everything is hard, but it's just generally speaking, even when you're successful. I mean, you see this all the time. These successful people who are so depressed,
Yeah.
it's just hard to be happy and to to remember to stay positive and all that. Thankfully, there are good groups of people like we're part of that help you keep
Mhm.
at it. But that doesn't have much to do with writing, though. you
Oh
know,
yeah.
um, yeah.
Okay. Well, since this is your second book, kind of how like I said, all this is kind of new to me. Um,
Hmm.
as far as you being an author, how does the kind of financial aspect of it? How is that?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, good
is it
question.
something you
I
can
mean,
really kind of? Well, my goal isn't really to make money anyway, but because this is a
right.
business class I'm taking, that's kind of one of the
Hmm.
questions.
Hmm. Well,
How
so
is
here's what I'll
how is
tell you.
it making money? Uh huh.
I mean, so you're not gonna. So I, as a poet, am never gonna make enough money selling books of poetry to like pay
Mhm.
the rent. I mean, maybe for
Mhm.
like a brief time,
Mhm.
sure. Um, but that's just not gonna happen. And I mean, I think there are like 3 or 4 poets in the whole country who even do that. I'm not even sure there's
Mhm.
any. I mean, I guess there's. I can pull a few names out of a hat that I think maybe make enough money on book sales. But like, it's just like what I'm doing is just like what you're talking about. Is like the book is the thing that tells people like you're worth paying for other things. So
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So for me, I mean, I have lived for the last 5 years, or maybe even more at this point, as a freelance editor and ghostwriter, and like
Mhm.
I've made a good living editing people's books and ghostwriting their books for them, and also I teach online. I also um um I was drawing a blank here. What was I just gonna say? Just I have a bunch of different sources of income
Mhm.
that 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 without the books, I mean, I would still be able to do some of it, but I'd have a lot less business.
Mhm.
Um, and as you know, I even do really really outlandish things like I handyman on the side, but like that's because I want to get out of the house and
Yeah.
because sometimes editing business is kind of slow, you know.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's so busy that you feel a little crazy. Um, there's also like I give readings at universities, and they don't necessarily pay lots of money, but sometimes they pay pretty well, and a lot of the time they pay just a little bit, but that's money. And so a lot of people, this would be more on your end, if you write a book where you can give a good talk, man, people will
Yeah.
pay big money for that, and
Yeah.
that's a whole. I mean, it's kind of crazy how much people will pay for that. So
Mhm.
so the thing to think about is that the book is the credential. The book is the thing that tells people like, okay, this person is legitimate, and not just
Mhm.
that you have a book, but when they open it and they read it and they go, oh wow, they can actually write, or oh wow, they've actually got good ideas. Oh
Mhm.
wow, I'm actually learning from this person. I want to meet this person. Um, so the financial side is good, but you got to recognize it's not necessarily from book sales. Now that might not be true for you though. I mean, it depends on the book you write. Like poetry. Come on, how many people are really buying poetry books? Which, by the way, thank you for buying my book today. It was very nice of you. It's already
Thank
in the
you.
mail.
Hey, great! I can't wait. I got time. I just found out I don't go back to work till April
You've
3rd,
got
so
time, yeah.
I got
Everybody's
time to
got time to
read
read right now.
it.
but 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 yeah, I mean there are obviously authors who their books sell really well, and
Mhm.
that's how they make their living. But yeah, I mean, I think for most of us, the thing to think about is that's the credential. That's the way you get yourself out there,
Yeah.
and then you got to do the hustle and find ways to make money where people pay you for other things that are
Yeah.
related to it but aren't
Exactly. That's kind of what I was
the
thinking.
product.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
And that
Great.
and
All
that
right.
will work. That will totally work. I mean, like I think a lot of people, like, you might think about it this way, like it could just be part-time for a while, like,
Mhm.
it brings you in, $1,000 a month. Well, if it brings you in $12,000 a year, that's $12,000 you don't have to make at your job or somewhere else.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, that's kind of how it all works for me, is like sometimes I'm editing so much that that's all I need. And I'm like, that's all I need. And sometimes I'm not, so I've got to do other things to make money. Um,
Gotcha.
but but so being a writer can be full time income. It can also be part time income. But either way, if it's bringing in
Yeah, it's
some
additional
income,
income. So yeah.
hey, it's additional income. Like it
Mhm.
does make it. It really can make a monumental difference in your life, even if it's only a small percentage of your overall picture.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Great. All right. Well, I'm almost finished. Just two more questions. All right. Kind of
Hmm.
what advice, and you've given me so much already, um, would you give to someone, like me that wants to start out? Because um, what I'm writing is not necessarily poetry because I'm not a poet, but they're more like inspirational pieces. I don't know if I can even label it just yet. I'm still trying to
Sure.
decide. So kind of just what other advice do you think you can give me starting out?
Well, yeah. I mean, I would do as much reading as you can, which
Mhm.
is hard to do, when you're in the midst of everything else, but very healthy. I mean, if I'm who was were you there at Infinity? Maybe, gosh, this is a while ago now. Maybe 6 months ago. There's a guy who came in who was friends with Jeff. Maybe he came from DC, and his child was going to Vanderbilt or something. And he's a financial guy or something. But his big advice was like every day, find half an hour to read within your field. So I would say the same thing. Like even if it's just half an hour, you
Mhm.
know, during your morning coffee or during your
Mhm.
lunch or whatever, if you can find half an hour to just read within the universe of what you're doing. So
Okay.
it could be that you go to the bookstore or go on your Kindle or go on Amazon or whatever, and you get life coaching, self help books that are sort of in the
Mhm.
universe you're talking. Or
Yeah.
you could just Google like inspirational vignettes
Mhm.
or books
Mhm.
of inspirational vignettes or something. So you're not necessarily reading about life improvement, but you're reading books that are collections of short little snippets.
Mhm.
Like you
Okay.
know
Yeah.
if you know just do some research and find some books and just read in that, and then you'll start to see what is out there and what you really want to find is what is not there already,
Mhm.
like what you can provide that isn't there already. Now, another way to think about that is where you fit in. So it's not that you have to reinvent the wheel, but you know, if you have a totally new thing that you can make, awesome, and you may, right? But you might also just find, ooh, these writers do something sort of similar. I can slide right in between these two people, and I can provide something. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
so so since you're kind of searching around, you're not sure exactly what you're doing. That's a really good place to be in, by the way. Really good place to be in because it means that you've got all the options available to you.
Yeah. Okay. Because I've
Go
been
out, research,
trying to
find what
do that.
there is.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm telling you, half an hour a day will make a
Mhm.
huge, huge difference. And I need to follow my own darn advice. Like I need to follow my own advice because I haven't been reading poetry much lately for the last couple of years because I've just been overwhelmed with everything else. I mean, you've seen my life has changed like crazy since y'all met me. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really changed.
Yeah.
But I'm slowly getting back to it. And boy, I'll tell you, just emotionally and physically, I feel better. And I'm also
Mhm.
like, okay, like, right, here's what people are doing, and here's where I fit in, and here's what I'm doing differently, and okay, I'm starting to feel, like I know where I'm at a little bit
Mhm.
better.
Okay.
Just from, like I said, half an hour a day. That's all it takes. You can do 5 hours a day if you want, but who's got time
No,
for
I don't have that kind of time in my day, but this is perfect.
that? I used to. Boy, I miss those days, but it's not necessary.
All right. Thanks. Is there anything else you would like to share out or anything? Because that's basically it for my questions. I really thank
Well,
you,
I'm
and I
curious.
appreciate this so very much.
I'm
Mhm.
curious. So what is it? I mean, what is it that you're working on? What's kind of,
Okay.
if
This is
you
kind of
could?
what's going on. Because,
Okay.
and this is the thing, because I've been trying to kind of research, and I haven't quite found anything like what's going on in my head right now. So
Okay.
I kind of, because I love like reading like self help books and inspirational pieces, and so I kind of, because I don't want to write like a really long book, but I
Mhm.
want to do like some short, like I said, inspirational pieces, but also where it has kind of a self help, almost workbook like form with it, where
Mhm.
we can like to go along with the piece. Here's something you can do to kind of reflect on your own life and kind of see, like set a
Mhm.
goal towards or reflect on this. How do you feel about this, or how have you grown past this, or how did you make it through this based on this
Mhm.
piece? Kind of how does it make you feel? Now, what are your next steps, or what you can do?
Right.
Kind of, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm looking at doing something like this. So it's kind of like a book, but it's also kind of like I said, a journal because it's I want to have
Mhm.
like parts of the book where you can add in, your own reflective
Mhm.
thoughts as you read a piece. or as you
Mhm.
see the picture or the photo that goes along with the piece.
Mhm. So it's like are you telling stories from your life and how you got through a difficult time or something, a lesson you learned? Is it
Yeah,
like that kind
kind
of
of.
thing?
Yeah, and kind of just my
Okay.
process of how I've been able to, like, in the past few years, especially since I've been like at Infinity, just things that I've had in my life that have helped me just kind of grow myself, and also just
Mhm.
to get out of the mundane day to day and start like, wait a minute, I got dreams, I got stuff I've always wanted to do.
Mhm.
Why haven't I started working on those things? Why did I put that stuff on the back burner? And
Right.
just seeing how I can bring, live my everyday life, but also work on achieving my dreams too, and get to that instead of just 9 to 5, come home, eat, go to bed.
Right. Right. Well, yeah. No, it sounds great. I mean, there is a lot of need. There's an enormous need, for that kind of thought, instruction, guidance is maybe the best word to use.
Yeah, because
So,
in my regular 9 to 5 job, I am an instructional coach, and people come to me all the time, kind of asking for like advice or ideas or on something, and I love supporting and helping people and providing resources. And
right.
I was like, hey, I may could do this more on a personal level because some of the people I work with start coming to be personal about other things, and I was able to kind of help them with. And I was like, and I know how I've been able to do, by reading certain books and doing their work myself. I was like, I may be able to help others to kind of do some of those same things too in some
Right.
more easy, more practical ways, you know. So that's kind of
Mhm.
where I'm
All
trying to
right.
go with
All
this.
right. All right. Well, I think you've got a good idea. I think you need to. I'm glad that you're pursuing it, and I think it's really cool that you're taking this course on how to. You're taking a course on how to make this business work. And that's
Mm-hmm.
smart. See, now I've never done that, and I need to do that. I need to follow your example. I've like thrown all of it together, and like business wise, I've just thrown it together. I've just figured it out, and I've never taken a class. I've read a few books, but so I think it's very wise to do it the way you're doing it. Um, but that's actually kind of the last little piece that I kind of want to say. Just do it. Just like go for it. You know what I mean? Like I think a lot of people they like over plan and overthink, and sometimes it's just
Mhm.
like just do it. Just try
Yeah.
stuff and see what works. And if it doesn't work, it won't matter because no one will know except for you. And if you just stay
Mhm.
positive and just keep trying. So yeah, so I'm curious. I'm curious to see how things grow for you because I really need to follow your example. I need to take a
Oh,
class.
don't worry, because once I get these pieces finished, I'm gonna be coming to you to edit it for me. So.
Okay, and then I'm gonna need your advice and yeah, okay, good. Well, hey, thank you so much for asking me to do this. It feels really good to just connect in this way and
Thank you.
um
I really appreciate this. Really been it's really been great. It's given me a lot of
good.
good information.
Good. Okay. Well, hey, text me, call me anytime, Facebook me if you got any questions, um, and I'll see you once we're not going to be able to come to Infinity for until this is done. I just
Yeah,
don't
we
feel.
probably
I
won't
just I just
either. So we'll.
I'm
Yeah,
glad
I
they're
just
still
been
doing it,
streaming.
but yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So, but I will see you when we're through this crazy time.
All right, I will too. And thank you again. And I'll see you when I can.
All right, sounds good. You be good.
All right, you too. Thanks.
All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.